blood, iron, and loyalty. During the Viking Age, oaths were taken to confirm agreements between individuals or between a person and a god. But some oaths required an even more intimate connection with the gods. The Viking blood oaths. This is a tale of Norse mythology and Vikings history. Our story begins in Norway during the 9th century AD. King Harald Fairhair was determined to unite Norway under his rule. He campaigned across the country, defeating rivals and forcing them to swear allegiance to him. One such opponent was a chieftain named Eric Bloodaxe, who ruled over a territory in western Norway. Eric had resisted Harald's attempts to subjugate him, but eventually he was defeated and forced to flee to the Scottish Isles. However, when Eric realized the futility of further resistance, he returned to Norway and submitted to Harald, swearing a blood oath of fealty to the king. But it wasn't just any oath. It was a Viking blood oath, a ritual that went beyond the mere exchange of words and bound two people together through blood. You see, for the Vikings, oaths were a serious business. They took oaths to confirm agreements, alliances, and most importantly, oaths of loyalty. And these weren't your typical promises. They were solemn vows that had far-reaching consequences. Breaking an oath was not just a breach of trust. It was a sin against the gods. The Vikings believed that their oaths were sacred and should be treated as such. And this belief was deeply ingrained in their culture. In fact, the concept of oaths was so important to the Vikings that they even had a special word for it, side, which meant both oath and sacrifice. This highlights the significance that the Vikings placed on oaths, emphasizing that they were not just empty words, but rather a binding agreement that demanded the utmost sincerity and commitment from those who took them. Now, the process of taking an oath was a significant event, and it wasn't taken lightly. It was a public declaration that involved the person making the oath, the person to whom the oath was made, and sometimes other members of the community. The oath itself was often sworn on a sacred object like a sword or an axe, and it was usually accompanied by a drink, a toast, and sometimes even a feast. But perhaps the most striking aspect of the Viking oath was its use of the O rune, which symbolized oaths and sacred bonds. The use of this rune was so widespread that it became known as the Rune of the Oath. So you can see how serious the Vikings were about their oaths. But every now and then, an oath would require something more than just words and rituals. It demanded an even deeper level of commitment, one that would bind two people together in an unbreakable bond, literally through their blood. These were the Viking blood oaths. Now, the specifics of these oaths varied depending on the situation and the people involved. But generally speaking, the process was similar. The two people who were about to swear a blood oath would cut themselves, usually with a knife or a sword, and then they would mix their blood together. Sometimes this was done by placing the two hands together and letting the blood mingle, while other times it involved mixing the blood in a bowl or a horn. Once the blood was mixed, the two people would drink it, and in doing so, they would become bound to each other in a sacred bond. It was a powerful symbol of their commitment to each other, and it was also a reminder of the consequences of breaking that bond. After all, if they had willingly mingled their blood, then they had essentially become one, and any attempt to break their bond would be akin to betraying oneself. Now, the Viking blood oath wasn't necessarily a peaceful gesture. It was often taken before battle to fortify the warrior's courage and commitment to their comrades. Famous Viking warrior Ragnar Lothbrok swore a blood oath with his fellow warriors before the battle against King Ella in Northumbria. In Norse sagas, Ragnar assembled his men, drew his sword and cut his hand. Then he dipped his hand into the blood and touched the faces of his men, rousing them for battle. Each warrior who partook of the blood oath was thereby bound to protect and support his comrade until death. It was a chilling display of loyalty and courage, a testament to the unbreakable bond that existed between these warriors. However, the Viking blood oath wasn't only used on the battlefield, it was also used in everyday life. It was a common practice among the Vikings to swear a blood oath when making important agreements, whether it was a business deal or an alliance between two families. By mixing their blood, two people could create a bond that would ensure that neither party would betray the other. And if anyone did, they would be held accountable, not only by human law, but also by the gods themselves. Perhaps one of the most famous examples of a Viking blood oath is the oath sworn by Ivar, the Boneless, and his half-brother, Ubba, in the 9th century. The two brothers ruled over Dublin in Ireland, where they faced a power struggle with their uncle Amlabe. Tensions escalated and eventually led to a confrontation where Amlabe was killed, supposedly by Ivar's hand. Before this fateful event, however, the three brothers had sworn a blood oath to protect each other. But after Amlab's death, Ivar found himself on the wrong side of that oath. To make matters worse, a prophecy foretold that Ivar would die before seeing his own homeland, a fate that would befall many of the Viking leaders. So what was Ivar to do? The answer, according to legend, was to swear another blood oath. This time he called upon the legendary sword of the Anglo-Saxon king Edmund the Martyr, Excalibur. Yes, we know that sounds crazy, but stay with us here. Supposedly, Ivar brought the sword to a nearby river, dipped it in the water, and then drank from it. With this act, he absolved himself of his previous oath to his uncle, and forged a new one with the gods. And as they say, the rest is history. Perhaps one of the most famous examples of a Viking blood oath is the oath sworn by Ivar, the Boneless, and his half-brother, Ubba, in the 9th century. The two brothers ruled over Dublin in Ireland, where they faced a power struggle with their uncle Amlab. Tensions escalated and eventually led to a confrontation where Amlab was killed, supposedly by Ivar's hand. Before this fateful event, however, the three brothers had sworn a blood oath to protect each other. But after Amlab's death, Ivar found himself on the wrong side of that oath. To make matters worse, a prophecy foretold that Ivar would die before seeing his own homeland, a fate that would befall many of the Viking leaders. So what was Ivar to do? The answer, according to legend, was to swear another blood oath. This time he called upon the legendary sword of the Anglo-Saxon king Edmund the Martyr, Excalibur. Yes, we know that sounds crazy, but stay with us here. Supposedly, Ivar brought the sword to a nearby river, dipped it in the water, and then drank from it. With this act, he absolved himself of his previous oath to his uncle, and forged a new one with the gods. And as they say, the rest is history. Now, while these stories may seem outlandish to us today, they serve as a reminder of just how real and how important oaths were to the Vikings. It wasn't just a formality or a legal technicality, it was a way of life. But in the end, the Viking blood oaths were more than just a historical curiosity. They were a reflection of the values and beliefs of a culture that has fascinated people for centuries. The Vikings were known for their bravery, their exploration, and their willingness to take risks. And the blood oath was a testament to their commitment to their way of life. Even in the face of danger, they knew that they could rely on their friends and their oaths to protect them. And perhaps that's a lesson that we can all learn from these legendary warriors. So what do you think? Were the Viking blood oaths just a bit too extreme for you? Or do you admire the unwavering loyalty that they represented? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more epic tales of Norse mythology and Viking history. Until next time, remember to stay strong, stay true, and never break your oaths. Unless, of course, you're Ivar, the Boneless. We'll see you then. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode and want to support our channel, consider becoming a patron. As a patron, you'll get access to exclusive content, behind-the-scenes info, and the chance to influence the direction of the show. Visit our page to sign up today. Now with your support, we can keep bringing you top-notch mythological mayhem. Thanks for watching.